All right. Let me ask you this. What kind of reputation do you have? Okay, you don't have to answer out loud, but think about that question. What kind of reputation do you have? Like, if you're anything like I was in high school, it depended on who you asked, right? You could ask, your friends, and it generally would be a good, you have a good reputation. Sometimes your friends are the most brutally honest, though, so maybe they'll tell you, your reputation's not as stellar as it could be there. But I remember feeling like I always wanted to impress everybody, and so whenever I would hear somebody that would have criticism towards me or have, maybe they thought of me and they thought of that thing that I did that I wished I hadn't done, and so my reputation was wrapped around a bad decision rather than like all the other parts of my life. Anybody ever felt like that before? Like maybe you were judged by others based on one thing. Your reputation was built on the one thing people knew about you, even if that one thing was very shallow and was a very small amount of what makes up you. And so reputation is something that is fickle. It's important. You want a good one, but it's something we all hopefully strive towards. But everybody's going to have different opinions. Like you take LeBron James, for instance. I've already got some boos. How many would say, like, yeah, he's the GOAT? LeBron James, greatest of all time. Good. Not very many hands. I don't think so either. How many would say you have a negative opinion of LeBron James? Wow. Okay. So you're in good company here. So Michael Jordan will always be the greatest, in my opinion. So anyway, but depending on who you ask, people are going to have different opinions on him. I could go through any public figure. I could go through Justin Bieber. I could go through Taylor Swift. I go through all these people, and you would have an opinion of what their reputation is, and not everybody in this room is going to agree. But if you're being honest, when it comes to your own reputation, you wish that everybody thought as highly of you as your biggest fan. That your reputation was something that when people heard your name, it was all positive. You were the greatest person ever. They loved you. They loved everything about you. Everything that you did, everything that was you in your life was good. That's the kind of reputation that we all want if we're honest. But sometimes we just really don't care. Some of us, if we're honest, there's times of our life we don't care what our reputation is. Who cares what they think, right? You be you. And so what do we do with this? What do we do with reputation? What do we do with should we care about what others think? Should we not? And how do we actually have a good reputation if that's something that we desire? The reality is you can't control what people think about you. Okay, is that a fair statement? You can't control what other people think about you. We wish we could. We try to put forth an image that will dictate how others will think of us. And usually there's the people that you can cater an image about what kind of person you are, what your reputation is, to people who are at arm's length, who don't really know you that well. But then there's the people who really know you well, and you can't hide from them. They see every part of you. And our culture really caters to this arm's reach reputation, where people don't really know the real you, they see your persona. And so the reality is you can't really control what people think about you, but we desperately try. And why is that? That's something I want you to think about. So maybe, like I said before, people have tried to make the decision for you about who you are and about your reputation. They've made up in their minds something about you based on something they heard or something that they saw you do one time, and that's in their mind who you are to them. But when it comes to your world, isn't it true that there are people who are more popular because of their unwise decisions? I mean, not a show of hands, but think through your friends, think about your school, think about the people that you know. A lot of the people that we know are well known for their unwise decisions, and sometimes that has earned them more popularity. That's certainly true with a lot of celebrities. There's the phrase, no press is bad press, all press is good press. Doesn't matter what the news is, as long as it's about you, it's good. You want to be in the headlines. And so there's this idea that, sometimes people become more popular or more influential based on their reputations. But for others, maybe you manage a different reputation depending on who's in the room. So you'll have a reputation with the adults in your life, and then you'll have another reputation with your peers. And that's not uncommon. That's a pretty natural thing. So if we're honest, reputations are complicated things. It's difficult to really wrap our minds around what about our reputation should be most important. And how do we prioritize having a good reputation? And if you were in the same room as some of the adults in your life and some of your peers, would they both have the same thing to say about your reputation? Good questions to consider. So with that in mind, we're going to look to the book of Proverbs. And I want to go through a couple verses that I think will really tie this idea together and how being wise has what that has to do with this. So we're going to read Proverbs 10:9, and it says this. It says, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his ways crooked will be found out." So somebody summarize that in your own words. I know you're eating, but shout it out in your own words. What does that mean? Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his ways crooked will be found out. What's your interpretation? If you're living right, you don't have to worry about being found out. Yeah, walking securely. Okay? In other words, if you're intentional about making the right decisions every day, you're secure. You don't have something to worry about. You don't have to worry about what you have to hide around who, what lie you have to tell to get out of the other lie you told. You don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely. So this comes down to integrity. Maybe choosing integrity is better, but maybe I'm guessing you're in high school. You probably already know that. So the alternative, though, is to make crooked decisions or to do something to get ahead, to take shortcuts maybe, to be liked by others. Whatever it is, if we don't live by the way that we probably should, if we don't walk in integrity, if the person that you are when nobody's looking does not match the reputation you're trying to build for yourself when everyone is watching, then those crooked ways will be found out one way or another. So that's why choosing integrity is better. It's the only way you can have both a good reputation and peace. So instead, maybe we should try aiming for this. This is Proverbs 22, verse 1. It says, "A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold." So a good name being equal to having a good reputation, kind of like what we've been talking about. To be esteemed is probably equal to being respected. Something that every one of us probably desires. We want to be well esteemed. We want to be respected by those around us, whether they're peers or adults. And according to this passage, it's better than anything else. It's better than getting rich. It's better than having everything else that you could have in this world, is having a good name. Because ultimately, it means you're not going to be sacrificing your relationships with other people for the sake of getting ahead or for whatever else it might be. So here's what I've seen to be true about reputation. And this is probably, if I wanted you to remember one thing from this message, it would be this. Reputation doesn't really matter to us until we wish we had a different one. So if you've been sitting here this whole time, you've been thinking, okay, yeah, we want a good reputation. I get that. I don't understand what I should be doing about that now or why this applies or why we're making a whole message about this. It's because most of us, our reputation doesn't matter. We want to do what we want to do. We want to have fun. We want to be our own boss. We want to live in freedom. We want to make our own decisions. The problem is, most of us, when we're making decisions in the moment, when we haven't thought through things, we're not really thinking about our reputation most of the time. And our reputation doesn't really occur to us in most of our decision-making moments. And it doesn't really matter to us until we wish we had a different one. Once you're known for something, then we care what our reputation is. And maybe some of you are there. Maybe some of you are afraid of your own reputation and what others might be thinking of you when you walk into the room. And some of you, maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you haven't just been found out yet. Or maybe you don't have anything to regret of much significance. But the point is, this is something that we should think about. And honestly, there is no too late, because while you guys are in high school, I remember being in high school. Chelsea and I were talking about this just the other day. When we were in high school, it felt like everything was, not to be dramatic, but it felt like everything was the end of the world. It felt like everything mattered so immensely. And then you graduate, and then you go to college, or you get a job, or you start adulting, and then you're like, why was I so concerned about that in high school, right? And so what I want you to recognize is, if you feel like it's too late for you, or you're already known for something, the good news is you're not anywhere near too late. Like, any day is a good day to start living more wisely. And over time, you will build a new name for yourself. You'll build a new reputation. For some of you, that could be a good thing. For others of you, that could be a not so good thing, because it could go both ways. But at a certain point, I had to make this decision for myself. I had to care about my reputation. And what I had to recognize was that my past decisions built my current reputation. And so if I want to build a new reputation, then my future decisions have to be different. They have to be prioritized with something else in mind. And so there's a lot of things as a high schooler that you cannot control, right? Is that a fair statement? There's a lot of things in high school you cannot control. You cannot control your schedule. You cannot control your curfew. You cannot control where you live. You cannot control your family. You cannot control a lot of things in your life. But there are things that you can control, and it's the decisions that build your integrity. The decisions no one sees built the reputation that everybody else remembers. I'll say that again. The decisions that no one sees built the reputation that everybody else remembers. So who you are and the decisions you make, the thoughts you choose to dwell on in your head, those things that nobody else sees, that will build the reputation that everybody else will remember. So start today to build the reputation you want people to remember. Why? Because it matters what other people think? Maybe, partly true. But mostly because I think God wants us to live the way that He's designed for us to live, to have the relationships that build us up, that hold us together. If we do all the right things. I was just having a conversation with somebody this past week, and they were struggling with, they were struggling with mental health. They were struggling with some anxiety. They were struggling with depression. They were struggling with, I have no friends. I don't know what to do about that. And this was a person that's probably a life season ahead of most of you in here. And I said, okay, so who are your close friends? And they named 2 or 3 people. I said, how often do you hang out with those people? She said, maybe a couple times a month. Okay, so out of the hours of your week, out of the days in your month, a few select hours out of just a short handful of days out of every month is spent with these friends. Are these friends good for you? Well, they're not really Christians, but they're good listeners. Okay. So they're not on the same life path as you. And then ultimately, my point was, and the point of this message even, is that if you want to thrive, if you want to succeed in life, you have to be grounded in good, Christ-centered community, which is why we are here on Sunday nights, is to provide an intersection for you to meet other people that are like-minded, that are on the same trajectory and wanting to follow Jesus, and people that you can lock arms with. You have to have strong Christian community. And how that ties into your reputation is if you want people to trust you, you want to be able to be as invested in your Christ-centered community as possible, your reputation matters. People will choose whether or not they want to be vulnerable with you based on the way you speak about others when they're not in the room. People will choose if they want to extend a relational hand to you based on some of the decisions that you've made, because they're deciding, are you a wise person for me to be around? So the decisions that you make, the reputation you build now matters because you are not an individual. You are part of a community. You have your own things that you can control, your own decisions you can make, but you don't live in isolation. You live in a community. And the extent to which that you build yourself into a community is directly related to how whole you will feel, or conversely, how empty you will feel if you lack it. So your reputation matters. The decisions you make matter. Who you choose to invest your life in matters. So the decisions no one sees built the reputation that everyone remembers. So we can control the decisions that create our reputation, and your decisions are the starting point. There's a lot of things, like I said, that you can't control. So start with the things that you can. If you want to be known for 2 or 3 things, what would they be? Think about that. And you don't have to know the answer right now, but it's worth taking some time to think about. Lastly, choose one element of your integrity to start working on this week. Listen, we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all have our own temptations, our own vices, our own selfish tendencies. And the reality is we're not going to be perfect. But we can strive to improve our integrity and get better in certain areas, but that requires being open and vulnerable with our community, with our people closest to us, to hold us accountable and to build us up and encourage us. And also, we can start in one part of our lives and build out into the others. Okay, the goal, the reason life is a journey is because we're constantly growing in every season of life, and it will never end until you die. So start today and work on the areas that are within your control to build your integrity. The decisions that no one sees will build the reputation that everybody remembers. So we've got just a few minutes left. I'd love to go ahead and just close this out in prayer real quick. Feel free to take some more pizza or whatever you want to do and head to your small groups, and then we'll close out our time in that context. So.